Thanks very much for coming along. It's really nice to have you here. There's equal amounts of opportunity and risk, do you think, in terms of, I mean, obviously with consolidation going on and focus having the driver to be, industry leading one-stop shop, if you like, for your customers. I mean, is there an element of, right, they're too good, I don't want to let them get away, we need to have them in our umbrella?
There can be that, and there are some really good businesses out there. You've always got to weigh up kind of risk and opportunity. I mean, if I go back to one of the discussions we had before, and I think we're all in agreement that the opportunity in the mid-market is to become more of a technology provider as opposed to just a foundational telco provider. That's a huge opportunity. That's also risk if we try and do that too quickly or too cleverly, or we decide the only way to do that is to give our sales teams new scripts and we don't absolutely restructure some other parts of the business, then you can disrupt powerful, successful telco sales teams. You've got to do it at the right pace, and you've got to make sure you're learning all across the way. But there are absolutely opportunities, and I happen to think that the buyer-seller discussions that we're having are becoming more constructive. I think they're becoming more informed. I think sellers are really open now to taking advice and understanding what constitutes a good business, what constitutes equity value. We see a lot of sellers out there that have taken advice and are at the end of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 plus months worth of advice, which is actually really taking their businesses into valuable assets. They're not just coming to market, they're coming to market in an informed way, and I think that makes for a really constructive discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes back to what Nigel was saying in terms of the strategic piece.
I mean, there's so much more you can do with if you have an advisory team with a client that comes to you early in the process. Sellers and shareholders need to think about now is these guys are concerned about sustainability and resilience, as we picked up earlier. That's what they will understand. They will understand the quality of earnings, and they're going to look quite deeply at that. If we go back 10 years ago, somebody spending £30,000 to make in DD to make a £10 million acquisition, even up to 20, was a lot of money. Now we see people spending over £100,000, and it could get a lot more than that. So as advisors, we know that's there's two accountants on the other side that are on that project, and it's going to go for 6 weeks if it's already, as you say, if they've been advised and there's a proper process being put in place to provide all the documentation. It's 6 weeks of two accountants both sides. So to be able to do those deals now, you have to be advised by a team that's got that kind of capacity, and that's just a factor of the last 10 years, and if anything, the recession or the pandemic has increased the expenditure people are making with DD.
I think there's one point I'd like just to come back to, and I'm really interested in the views of the rest of the panel on this, because I just want to go back to what people mean in kind of the post-COVID world, because it's quite an easy thing to say, and lots of people say it, and it's a very easy thing to have a high level, but you can have wonderful strategy and vision at the top end, and you can have very good corporate, financial, operational governance at the other end, and of course it leads into valuations and all of the good things. But I still think in the middle, if you have good people, if you have a good culture, if you can show the need to attract and retain, that correlates to a successful business. That none more so. People want to enjoy where they work, they want to have the right environment. I still think the people in the middle actually build the business and drive the value, because it relates to everything else. And I think I'm interested in the views there, particularly we're talking about all of these metrics, they're so important, but in the middle, particularly in a post-COVID environment, you've got to have people that enjoy coming to work, are empowered, because that's when you'll execute the strategy. People will always be intrinsically linked to organic growth and the execution of that. And I would say one of the biggest risks to us in the sector is attract and retain.
Well, just picking on that, we talked about growth and cash as being as the big drivers of valuation. We recently advised a team that achieved, Ian mentioned, 6 to 8 times for a telco is normal, but that's not normal for a very small telco, something sub 5 million. And this business achieved something in the region of 15 to 20 times. Now, the reason why it did that was because it had talent. It had talent that another business could pick up and open up a new market. And of course, it didn't look like 15 to 20 times for the proposition they put to Ian. That wouldn't have cut the mustard.
I think what has really changed for us over the last 2 years is starting to think about factors outside of the purely financial. So starting to think about and how these mid-corporate customers are adapting to things like diversity, how they're adapting to culture change, how they're moving to net zero. What are they doing about diversity in the workforce? I think the phrase from our chief exec around purposeful capital and how you deploy it is as important as we make a return on capital nowadays. And how can we help customers on that journey, not by cracking the whip and saying you need to move to net zero within 3 years, but saying this is what other people are doing, how can we help you on that journey? And I think for the businesses that we want to invest in, and again I use the word invest not lightly, I treat it as my own money, I want my own money back, but I also want to put it into something where I can look the people in the eyes the other side and say, do I believe in what you're doing and the way that you're doing it?
It's a great point.
Yeah, and I think I'd agree. It's really interesting if you look at even the last 2 years. Just pick up on your point there. We now in every investment committee paper have a whole section on ESG, and actually I think that indicates just how important those broader factors are to us as an investor now. But just to pick up on your point around staffing, for me it's not actually about COVID. People are coming back. There's a new form of working, and most people are adapting to a hybrid approach. But we were chatting before about this. The core driver for me is Brexit and shortage of labour supply, and actually creating that culture that means that people want to stay. Is frankly, it's not just going to drive the strategy as you point to, but it's also going to mean that you don't need to, have massive cost inflation on your P&L, and so. Yes, it potentially feels like a softer side, but actually I think there are kind of real tangible outputs of that as well in kind of business performance.
And the new generation of employees want slightly different things to people who were employed 20 years ago.
Oh yeah.
If you start to sort them down and say, well, what's your employee benefit scheme? Is there a well-being part to that scheme? Can I buy an electric vehicle through the company as a kind of benefit in kinds type product? It's not all about salary or location anymore. It's around a whole raft of other things which a new generation of employees seem to want, and they seem to treat it not as a career, but also as a portfolio. I'll do this for 2 or 3 years, I'll get some skills, I'll go somewhere else. So the danger, absolutely, the dangers for all of us as large employers is you invest a huge amount of time in training and upskilling these people. But how do you retain them at the end of that?
It's a well trodden that ESG is becoming in the top 5 of factors now. For sustainability. I think that the important thing for businesses is to be true to your values, and for us at Evolution Capital, it's about meticulous preparation, and that runs through the whole business and everybody works there. If we have tied ourselves into a couple of things that we're doing, to help the world, but they have to be based around what about us, which is all about preparation. And the advice or the investment we're making in those things is to help them prepare for certain outcomes, and that keeps us true to what we believe. I think that going down that route without believing, as you said earlier, you've got to believe in what you're doing, and to try to colour your business with ESG that isn't
greenwashing.
It can work the other way.
But it's also nice to hear. It's nice to hear you say that as well, because I think investment and financial services is not quite what it was, or my perception is it's not just about managing really tightly the balance sheet. It's about recognising that the value is created through the people in the other parts of the business. Value is created in real time, value is created in monetary terms as well, but what you do in the middle of the business is so important.
I mean, it goes back to the analogy of train them well enough so they can go anywhere and treat them well enough so they don't want to, isn't it? That's kind of
and I speak personally as well, right? In a post-pandemic world, I want to really enjoy going to work, right? We're going to pay attention to all of the metrics that we need to do to realise investments and to drive equity value, but the consequence of that has to be running a really good business that people enjoy coming to work. And I think that's a change in attitude for me over the last 2 to 3 years. And I think we see it in our workforce as well, and it's an important part of it, and it will generate value and performance for the business.
Thank you all of you for coming along today. The idea of today was clearly to paint our perspectives, which we're all looking at from a different angle, and to hear bankers and investor views and people that are running business as well as advisors hopefully gives everybody else a flavour of how we see the market moving in the next period. I think that we all agreed that in the beginning that what we can totally guarantee is that what we're seeing today will not be the same in 12 months' time. So let's all enjoy the run. Thank you, Fraser.
Great. Thanks very much, chaps.
Thank you.
That's a wrap.
Evolution Capital is the first UK corporate finance boutique to exclusively focus on providing advice to the ICT sector. We are the leaders in our field. With activities spanning 3 decades, we have provided strategic and transactional advice to over 200 technology entrepreneurs, shareholders and management teams of both privately owned and public companies. We deliver outstanding transactional outcomes by unlocking intrinsic value in our clients' businesses, by providing expert advice based on meticulous analysis and robust methodologies. This is who we are and how we do it.